In a modest Roman villa, Tribune Lucius watches a young man in a senator's toga tap a brass device, his expression rigid with disbelief.
You claim this lightning message can speak across miles. I've seen no evidence. Prove it now, or I'll have you flogged for wasting my time.
Watch! Tribune. In a moment, the spark I've harnessed will bring back a reply from 2 villas away. The future of Rome is at my fingertips.
Kaito's fingers dance across the brass key. A sharp click echoes, then a faint spark jumps between the contacts, racing down the copper wire. Minutes pass in taut silence. Then, a distant clattering answers. A paper tape inches out, imprinted with a message. Lucius's jaw drops.
By Mars. It's real. The message reads, Rome can hear. Where did you learn this sorcery? Who are you?
I am just an orphan of an equestrian, Tribune. But I bribed a blacksmith with my last coins to forge that copper wire. This is no sorcery, it's science.
Science. A word I don't know, but I know war. With this, legions could speak instantly. You must come to Rome and show Caesar himself.
Caesar. This is the chance I gambled everything for. But if he sees me as a threat, I'll be dead before sundown.
Tribune Lucius claps a hand on Kaito's shoulder, sealing his fate. Whatever awaited in the capital, the boy who remembered another world had just become someone Rome would never forget. Back in his simple room, Kaito turned the brass telegraph key over in his hands. The weight of what he was about to do settled in his chest. The memory struck without warning, a blinding bolt of lightning, the scream of collapsing metal, and then nothingness on a Tokyo crosswalk.
When I opened my eyes again, I was in this body, an orphan with nothing but a dead man's name, and the mind of an engineer from another era.
He had begged, borrowed, and finally bribed a blacksmith with his last silver coin to forge the wire that now hummed with potential.
If I fail, that was my final meal. I gambled everything on one invention, because I knew what Rome could become if it could speak across its lands.
Into a worn leather satchel went the telegraph key, a tightly coiled spool of copper, and a desperate faith. He stepped outside into the cool dawn. The road to Rome lay open, lined with cypress and ancient graves.
Caesar will either raise me up or strike me down. There is no middle ground for a man who brings a weapon like this.
He did not look back at the villa. There was nothing for him there but the ghost of a life he never chose. Thus began the journey of the boy who had died under a Tokyo sky and now carried the spark of the future into the Roman dawn. On the Appian Way, Kaito passed a milestone when a soot-covered figure emerged from a side path, blocking his way.
Kaito, that accursed wire you made me forge. Now the whole village says my hammer is tainted. What have you dragged me into?
A curse, Gaius. Number, it's the voice of victory. When Caesar sees what it can do, your forge will be remembered for centuries. He's afraid, like the rest. They sense the world shifting under their feet and cling to old gods. But I left those gods behind in Tokyo.
He pressed on, the road winding through cypress and olive groves until a hilltop revealed the endless sprawl of Rome.
Tokyo was a sea of neon, but this is a sea of stone, built on the bones of 1,000 years, and it's waiting for me.
Doubt stabbed at him. A whisper that he was a fraud, a ghost from nowhere, but the telegraph key in his fist was solid and real.
I didn't come back from the dead to stand on hillsides and wonder. This key is my voice, and Rome will listen.
He descended into the city as dusk fell, torches flaring along the walls. His arrival had not gone unnoticed.
Caesar's shadow stretches over all this. I'll either stand in the light with him or vanish into the darkness like a forgotten dream.
The War Council tent smelled of oil lamps and ambition. Kaito was ushered inside, where Caesar loomed over a map, his eyes sharp as a blade.
So you are the lightning message boy. Tribune Lucius swears by your device, but I only believe what I see. Show me.
With a copper wire and this key, I can send your orders faster than any horse. Watch, Caesar, and I'll prove it.
Words are wind, the far end of this camp. Send a message there right now. If it answers, you'll have my ear.
Kaito uncoiled a wire, his movements swift and certain. Splices were made, a small battery set, and the line was run to a tent 50 paces away. His fingers tapped the key. A distant clatter answered from across the dusk. The map table trembled under Caesar's fist.
The reply came. He'll either see a weapon or a threat. I've never been so close to death and power at the same instant.
By Jupiter, it works. A message across the camp in a single breath. I've never seen its equal. You are no mere orphan. From this day, you are my wired tribune. Build this across every legion. I will fund it with gold.
Kaito bowed, but his heart hammered with the weight of a promise that now chained him to the might of Rome. The true trial had only just begun. In the Senate, Kaito unfurled a map of copper-wired stations, his grand plan for Rome.
This web will drain the treasury. You offer a Greek fantasy. What use to legions?
Speed! Senator, my wire can relay victory from Gaul before the dust settles. That's enough.
Murmurs rippled. Some senators leaned forward, others whispered of sorcery.
Enough. I've seen this device. The wired tribune has my trust and my gold. Construction begins at dawn.
Caesar's fist hit the railing, silencing all debate. The order was absolute. Rome would be wired, Senate be damned.
A triumph for the new favorite. But remember, Tribune, the Senate has a longer memory than Caesar's patience.
That wasn't a warning. It was a promise. I felt the cold weight of a senator's hatred.
As the session dissolved, Brutus fixed Kaito with a stare of cold reckoning. Cato rolled up his map, but his pulse hammered. He'd won Rome's voice, yet its enemies were sharpening their knives. Weeks later, the Rome-Ostia line rose under Kaito's watch. Then, a runner arrived. A pole had fallen. The wire snapped.
This wire was cut cleanly, not a break, a blade. Someone is trying to silence Rome's new voice.
Near the broken pole, a workman stammered about a cloaked figure seen at dusk, fleeing north.
A single witness, a cut line, a hidden enemy. This isn't an accident. I'll need more than local repair.
Brutus appeared on the road, his toga immaculate, offering condolences and a retinue of his own guards.
Tribune, I heard of your trouble. Let my men guard your precious wire. I only wish to help.
Your concern honors me, Senator. But Caesar has already assigned legionaries. I cannot accept. He offers shields, but it feels like I am being hand-delivered to a dagger. I'll trust only legion steel.
The lines were mended, but Cato now ordered nightly patrols and started a private record of Senate movements. The copper voice of Rome sang on, but beneath it, a darker chorus was tuning its instruments. In Gaul, a message clattered through the portable telegraph. A Gallic tribe was flanking Caesar's left wing.
Relaying command. 12th Legion, pivot and hold the northern ridge. The wire hummed with delivery.
Orders sent, Caesar. The enemy's surprise is now their trap.
The legions cheered as the Gallic tide broke against Rome's instant coordination. Caito's name echoed through the ranks.
The wired tribune shall be known as my voice across the world. His mind split the enemy faster than any gladius.
In Rome, the honor curdled. Brutus addressed a private gathering, his voice low with poison.
This voice across the world is a Greek sorcerer. He wraps Caesar in wire. It's for control, not war.
When Caito returned to Rome, the Senate floor felt like a tomb of stairs. Only Tribune Lucius offered a warm clasp.
Their eyes say what their mouths won't. I've become too powerful for a mere orphan. That makes me a threat.
He had given Rome a weapon to unite an empire. But in the shadows, that same gift was forging a death sentence. Days later, a lavish banquet. Caito reclined with wine, but the air tasted of veiled daggers.
Tell us, Tribune, how does a nameless orphan learn the secrets of lightning? Was it a god or Greek coin?
A philosopher from Athens taught me before he passed. I was his student in better times. The truth is a crosswalk in Tokyo, but I'll swallow that behind this lie.
Needing air, Caito slipped into a colonnade. Then voices, low, urgent, seeped from the darkness.
The Ides. After that, the tyrant falls, and the Republic breathes again.
A second voice hissed a chilling agreement. Then the wired tribune dies alongside him. A shadow shifted. Brutus snapped his head toward the pillar, and the conspirators melted into silence.
Ides, that's a date. A murder. Caesar's murder. My murder. I stumbled blind into a plot.
In his room, Kaito carved a single word into wax. Ides. The stylus shook in his grip. Night after night, Kaito sifted through the Telegraph's whispers, copying every private signal that passed between senators.
This isn't Latin. It's a substitution cipher, and it breaks open like a cheap lock. Liberators ready. Package for the Ides. By the gods, they mean to strike at Caesar on that day. Liberators. Brutus's mouth is full of that Republican poison. He must be the core. I could send an anonymous note to Caesar, but his spies would trace the wire. I need proof, not riddles.
The next day, in the forum, Kaito felt eyes on his neck, a cloaked shadow that vanished whenever he turned. In a dim chamber, Brutus listened to a servant's report. His smile was ice.
The wired tribune has been sniffing after our signals. Double the watch on him. If he moves against us, he dies quietly.
He knows I am hunting. Now the hunter becomes the prey. I have to warn Caesar before the Ides or become another ghost.
The game of shadows had begun, and Kaito held only fragments of the truth. One wrong move would make him the first victim. 3 days before the Ides, Caesar's herald proclaimed a grand triumph to be held in the Forum, with all Rome attending. Cato's blood froze. The assassins would strike in the chaos, blades hidden among cheers.
This is their moment. I have to warn Caesar personally. Now, before it's too late.
He rushed to Caesar's chambers, but in the marble hallway, Brutus stood like a sentinel, his smile a thin, cold blade.
Caesar is occupied with the triumphed preparations. Your trivial reports can wait, Tribune.
This concerns his life. Step aside, Senator. I demand to see him.
As Brutus shifted, daylight caught the unmistakable outline of a Pugio beneath his toga, a dagger meant for a tyrant.
He's armed. If I force my way, he'll kill me and claim I attacked. I am cornered.
Cato forced a nod and retreated. Alone in his workshop, the telegraph key sat waiting, his last silent weapon.
I can't reach Caesar in person, but the wire can speak to Lucius in Ostia. He'll believe me. I'll send an anonymous warning by the very network they tried to destroy. If I send this, I erase the history I knew. Caesar lives. The Republic bends, or does it? In my world, his death began a century of blood. Civil war. The Republic strangled.
Through the window, a boy played legionary in the street, laughing as he thrust a wooden sword at a goat.
Better a living tyrant than a dead Republic drowning in blood.
Cato slid the wax tablet into his tunic, donned a dark hooded cloak, and snuffed the lamp. He slipped into the night, avoiding the torchlit paths, a shadow among shadows. The telegraph station waited on the city's edge, its single lamp a beacon in the dark. He paused at the door, hand on the latch, hearing nothing but his own heartbeat. The wax tablet bore its message, Cavet Idus Martiae.
Once I send this, I am a traitor to the Senate, but I am already their target.
Kaito pushed open the door and entered the station, a single lamp sputtering. The young operator looked up, startled. He gestured curtly. The boy scurried out, leaving Kaito alone with the clicking machine and the copper wire. His fingers found the brass key. He began tapping. Lucius, Caloi, Caesar. Life, danger, Ides. The machine clattered its reply, a staccato rhythm that echoed through the stone chamber, then fell to silence.
It's done. The warning is on its way to Ostia. Lucius will know by dawn.
A soft chuckle cut the air. From the darkness of the doorway, a lamp rose, illuminating Senator Brutus's cold smile.
I was hoping you'd try that, little Greek. I've had this station watched for days.
Kaito's hand stilled on the key. The paper tape bore the warning, plain as a confession.
A pity. You could have been useful. Now you are a loose end I must tie.
The trap had been baited with Kaito's own invention. Escape was impossible. Only defiance remained. Brutus tilted his lamp toward a severed copper wire dangling from the ceiling, its end blackened.
The Ostia line. You cut it an hour ago. My message never left Rome.
I was prepared for your treachery, but your genius is wasted on a tyrant. Join the liberators.
I will not murder a man who gave me purpose. I'd rather die a free man than a slave to your cause.
Then you are worse than an enemy. You are a fool who will die for nothing.
He backed Kaito against the cold stone wall, the dagger's tip pressing into his toga.
Do it, but the wire will speak even if I can't. Caesar will see you for what you are.
The wire's tongue is cut. Yours will follow.
Brutus's hand tightened. His final restraint snapped, and the blade lunged forward. Pain seared through Kaito's chest as the blade met flesh. The telegraph key clattered to the floor. Even with the blade in his chest, Kaito lurched forward and kicked over the oil lamp. Flames erupted across the scrolls.
Burn with me, traitor!
Brutus stumbled, his toga singed. Kaito wrenched his brass stylus free and drove it into the senator's forearm.
You wretch.
In the chaos, Brutus twisted the dagger and tore it free. Kaito collapsed, a new river of crimson soaking his toga. Distant shouts echoed. City guards. Brutus, clutching his arm, fled into the night, his mission half done. The fire crackled. Kaito lay in a spreading warmth of his own blood, the telegraph key just out of reach.
Not like this. The message must.
With fingers scraping stone, he dragged his broken body toward the key, leaving a dark smear in his wake.
I died once in a storm of lightning. I won't die in silence.
Gritting his teeth, Kaito hauled himself onto the stool, his blood slicking the brass key.
Ostia line is dead, but the test line, my backup to the 13th Legion.
Fumbling with the connector, he switched the circuit and collapsed onto the key, rapping out a single word, IDES. The machine stuttered, punching faint dots on the paper before the current died.
It's enough. If they hear it, they'll know. The Ides.
His hand slipped from the key and hung limp, crimson tracing a path down the brass. Kaito slid from the stool and hit the stone floor, his toga blooming dark red, the paper tape bearing his final message wafted in the draft of the dying flames, save for the crackle of fire. The night swallowed the station into silence, and somewhere along a hidden wire, a Sir Legate stared in confusion at a single unknown word, IDS. The legate stared at the tape, his mind racing. Ides eyes, the day of Caesar's grand triumph. A coincidence or a warning? He rushed to the commander, thrusting the note. Sir, someone wants Caesar dead today. The commander slammed his fist. By Mars, this is a loyalist warning. Sound the alarm. A sentry must march on the Senate now. Legionaries grabbed their weapons, forming ranks under the pale morning sky. A century began its grim, swift march toward Rome. Meanwhile, in a dim chamber, Brutus revealed his bandaged arm to the gathered liberators. The Greek dog is muzzled.
The wired tribune is dead, his wire silent. Nothing stands between us and the tyrant's end. For the Republic.
A chorus of unsheathed daggers answered. The liberators slipped through the waking streets, blending with the crowds. They merged with the masses outside the theater of Pompey, where Caesar expected cheers, not blades. But on the Tiber road, the steady thunder of a century's march grew louder. Cato's final spark had been seen, a whispered word, raced on invisible wires. And now it bore the weight of armored justice. Caesar strode toward the Senate steps, basking in the cheers of the crowd. Among them, Brutus's hand never left his toga.
For the Republic.
Before the blade could fall, trumpets shattered the air, and a century of legionaries crashed into the assembly. Shields first, daggers clattered to the marble. Brutus and Cassius were wrenched back, their faces masks of shock. Caesar stood frozen. A centurion knelt, breathless, holding up a strip of paper. A message came via wire. Caesar. One word. Ides. We marched the moment we saw it.
Who sent it?
The wired tribune, my lord. He was found dead, his hand still on the key. Caesar's laurel wreath seemed to dim. The voice across the world had spoken its last. The Ides of March had claimed a life, but it was not Caesar's. It was the one who rewired fate. Caesar abandoned the triumph and strode through the smoldering station doorway. There, sprawled in caked blood, lay Caito. The brass key was still clutched in cold fingers. Beneath it, scrawled in blood on the floor, I chose the future.
You chose me when no one else would. You gave your voice so mine would not be silenced.
In his final moment, Caito's fading mind had conjured a brilliant vision. Caesar crowned emperor, and himself receiving a laurel of eternal gratitude. Caesar closed the young man's eyes. When he rose, his grief had hardened into something far more dangerous, a vow.
Let Rome hear. Caito will have a funeral of a consul, a statue in the Forum. He is now Deus Celeritas, the god of rapid tidings.
The proclamation echoed through stone corridors. The orphan who had stormed Rome with copper wire would be immortalized as its patron saint of messages.
His network will stretch beyond Britain and Parthia. Every legion, every city will speak with his spark. I swear it on his blood.
The wired tribune was dead, but his invention had already begun to outpace even Caesar's ambition. And as the sun set on the blood-stained Ides, history turned on a single word sent from a dying boy to a waiting century. The day of the Ides had barely ended when Rome's streets filled with a different crowd, mourners, not conspirators. A bier passed, bearing Caito's likeness carved in wax. The people threw laurels, and a single name thundered, Caito. At the Forum, Caesar stood before a veiled statue of marble and bronze. He lifted the shroud.
This man, unknown and unfriended, gave his life for mine. He asked nothing and gave everything.
Children laid coils of copper wire at the statue's feet, offerings to the new god of communication.
Let every wire that sings across our empire be his voice. Caito saved Rome, and Rome will never forget his name.
Brutus was executed that morning, but his name was already fading. Caito's, by contrast, was etched into eternity. Workers across Italy raised new poles. The copper threads spread like veins, carrying Rome's will in hours, not months. The orphan from the road to Rome had become a legend told in every tavern and campfire from Britannia to the Nile. And, as the sun finally set on the Forum, the god of rapid tidings stood watch over a city that had learned to listen. Years passed, and the empire hummed with the sound of clicking keys. Copper veins now pulsed from Rome to the farthest provinces. Each year on the Ides, Emperor Caesar, gray at the temples, walked slowly to the marble statue in the Forum. He laid a fresh laurel at the feet and whispered words only the marble could hear. He came from nowhere and changed everything. The story was now legend. The wires spanned from Britannia to Parthia, carrying law and love with equal speed. Legions marched in perfect coordination, and merchants grew rich on instant news. In a small station, a young operator tapped a familiar rhythm, dreaming of being the next wired tribune. Thus, the lightning message boy became the god of communication. And as the sun set, the copper paths he'd carved glowed like threads of gold across the world. Finn. It began with a flash of lightning on a Tokyo crosswalk, a death that was not an end but a beginning. He arrived in Rome with nothing but a memory of copper and current, and a blacksmith who took his last coin. In Caesar's war tent, before the conqueror of the world, a nameless orphan became the voice of an empire. When the daggers came, his fingers found the key one last time, tapping a single word that saved the future. They carved him in marble, the brass key forever in his hand, a god of messages for a world he remade. In the Forum, children left copper offerings. Old soldiers remembered the wired tribune who spoke faster than any horse. Centuries would pass, empires rise and fall, but the copper threads he strung never fell silent. And on clear nights, when the stars whispered, some said you could still hear his signal, a faint spark across the ether. A single star twinkled above the statue's head, like a spark waiting to be sent. He rewired fate itself, and in the end, that was enough. The first light of dawn touched the marble hand that still held the brass key. Across the empire, in quiet stations, operators tapped out news of harvests, laws, and love in a dusty village. A young girl pressed her ear to the receiver, and her eyes widened at a voice from worlds away. The copper threads wove a web no army could sever, no tyrant could silence. Soldiers on the frontier read their orders in time to hold the line. A governor learned of a flood before it reached his city. In the forum, the statue stood unchanging, but each year new offerings of wire piled at its base. One day, a child asked his father why the god held a key. So that even the voiceless may be heard, came the reply. And in the night, when the city slept, the wires hummed softly with the heartbeat of an empire that had learned to speak. Caesar, old and white-haired, visited the statue one last time. He placed his own laurel wreath on the marble head.
Rest well, my voice. Your words still run faster than any chariot, and Rome is their messenger.